Alrighty, we're going to be streaming about, and I already said it was going to be let's change that title there. There we go. Alright, so we're going to be completing the square to solve some quadratic equations. Shouldn't be any audio issues this time around. I'm going to wait a couple of moments just to give time for a couple other people to come in. Morning. Let's see, this is 4/21, and it's all class periods. Hope everything's going all right. We're at 3 now. All right, why don't we just go ahead and start talking through some of these. So yesterday we talked on, after those audio issues got fixed, doing quadratic formula. Okay, this is another method, solving by completing the square. And I have a few of these set up to basically already go ahead and do it. Okay, completing the square. All right, we have our equation already in standard form. That's your ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It's already in standard form. And then the next thing we did was to get this c term over here by subtracting the 33 from each side. Okay. And this is the part where I like to say on the left we're going to go plus box, on the right plus box. And even though there's still some empty boxes here, we're actually going to jump down to the next step and get this one going. You're just going to take 14, cut that in half, that's going to be 7. And then you'll take the 7, come back up and square it. 49 is what we're going to put in the box. Okay? And by doing that, we've finished the previous step now. Okay? And over here is going to be 49 minus 33, also known as 16. All right. At that point, we basically are now left with the kind of problem that you would be doing the square root property for, because all we're doing now is square rooting both sides of the equation. On the left-hand side, the only thing that's going to happen is the squared and the square root are going to cancel out. Okay, nothing else is actually going to happen. Yes, this is review. If you are looking to recover the learning target on solving with completing the square, this would be a little bit of help on how to do it. Okay, and then the square root of 16. Now, since we are the ones who added the square root symbol in here, we do need to consider both the positive and negative square roots of 16, which is 4. Okay, then we'll just subtract 7 from both sides, and you get x equals negative 7 plus and minus 4. Negative 7 plus 4, that's going to be negative 3, and negative 7 minus 4, that's negative 11. So it looks like x equals negative 3 and negative 11. There we go. So that is the basics for completing the square. We could do another one. Here we go. Solve this quadratic by completing the square. We're already in standard form. We will move the constant term over to the other side. So the left-hand side has x's only. If it doesn't have an x attached to it, it doesn't belong on the left-hand side. Plus box. Plus box. Come down here. Notice this is a minus 6, and we kept the minus sign. All right, that's not going to change at all, but we do half of 6, which is 3. Oh, there's the dog barking. 3 squared is 9, and this gives us 5. And you'll square root both sides. Once again, on the left, the radical and the squared cancel out. On the right-hand side, again, we need to do the positive and negative square roots. And 5 does not have its own square root, so, or at least a perfect square root. So it's just going to be the square root of 5 for now. And we'll call that plus 3, and we end up with x equals 3 plus minus square root of 5. Now that is 2 separate answers right there. If you are doing a question that is asking for decimals, you'll need to just evaluate those separately. You'll do 3 plus the square root of 5. And we can take it to like 2 decimal places. That'll be 5.24. And then you'll do separately 3 minus the square root of 5, which is going to give you, we'll take it 2 decimal places again, about 0.76. So depending on what the question is asking for, I think a lot of the times in IXL, if you're doing it in there, it does ask for decimals often. Okay. That's all that's happening there. Let's see, what else can we take a look at? Let's do this one here. I want to skip that last one. This one isn't already set up for us with fill in the blanks. We are going to need to do it ourselves. It is in standard form, which is good. We're going to move the element that does not have the variable attached to it over to the other side. Leave a nice space here so that we can say plus box, plus box. Down below, x, we keep the sign minus, and it's going to be squared. Half of 18, that's 9. 9 squared is 81. Okay. The step with the boxes is now complete, and we can complete the next step by just, I'll combine those two guys, negative 92 plus 81. I'm getting negative 11. Okay. Now with negative 11, that is a number that can't normally have the square root taken of it. So we are going to end up with imaginary solutions. The squared and the square root cancel. We've got x minus 9. Over here, we do need plus minus. We want positive and negative square roots. 11 is a prime number, so we're going to leave it as the square root of 11, but I'm going to put an I on the outside. So I'm going to write it that way. I'm going to put the I in front. Okay, that is a common way to do that. And then you kind of finish it up the same way that we have been. We'll just add that 9 to both sides so that x equals 9 plus and minus I square root 11. Okay. I don't imagine something actually asking for this as a decimal, but if it were, you would write that as 9 plus and minus, because it is still two separate answers. We can round that to 3.32 I. I don't think it would come up very often like that, but if you need to, I mean, all we had to do was type the square root of 11 into the calculator. No big deal. Okay, and all right. This is for the non-monic ones, okay? These are when the leading coefficient is not 1, okay? In order to complete the square, a has to somehow equal 1. In order to complete the square for a non-monic, start by pulling out the a term, okay? And well, let's see. So we'll once again, all these steps, this is basically the same thing that we've been doing. You're going to isolate the constant. You're going to factor out the GCF, which in this case it's pretty much always going to be a, and then go ahead and complete the square. So here's, well, let's just go ahead and do it. Here is one of these. It's going to be 4x squared minus 16x, I'll put a space there, equals negative 7. Okay, what we're going to want to do is to factor out the 4. That's going to give us x squared minus 4x, nice big space, and then the negative 7. So this time when we do our plus box, we're going to do a plus box here. Here though, since there is a 4 on the outside, we're going to do plus 4 box. Okay, bring down the 4. This is still a minus. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. There we go. And on the right-hand side, you basically have 16 minus 7, which is 9. Okay, before we can square root both sides, we do need to get rid of that 4, giving us x minus 2 squared equals 9 over 4, 9/4. And as usual, square root both sides. All right. Here they cancel out, so you just have x minus 2 equals, well, the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. So we simply have positive and negative 3/2, and you'll add 2 to both sides. In other words, x equals 2 plus and minus 3/2. And one's a fraction, one's an integer, but they are both rational numbers, so we should be able to add them together no problem. So you'll do 2 plus 3/2, that's going to be 7/2 or 7 over 2. And then you'll do 2 minus 3/2, and that gives you 1/2. So those are your two answers. They are, of course, going to be both fractions, which is going to happen when you've got a leading coefficient like that. Now, that's not the only method to go about doing this with. I want to do this one here a slightly different way. Okay, 4x squared plus 8x space equals 11. This time, instead of factoring out the 4, I want to divide everybody by 4. Okay? Yeah, that is going to give us a fraction of 11 over 4. But as you saw here, we ended up with a fraction anyway, so it's really just a matter of when do you want to bring it in? Do you want to bring it in at the beginning or at the end? If you're using a calculator that will work with fractions, such as TI 36 Pro that I like, doing basic operations, addition, subtraction, with fractions is not a big deal because it'll do most of the work for us. Okay. So I've already went in and put the plus box on the left and a plus box on the right. This is x plus half of 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. There we go. Now you're going to do 11 over 4 plus 1. Again, if the fractions are spooky to you, use a calculator to make it happen. You end up with 15 over 4. And the process is the same. We're going to square root both sides. The left side, nothing exciting, x plus 1. The right side, since this 4 does happen to be a perfect square, we can take care of it separately. That's going to be a 2. 15, not much you can do with that, so it is just going to be square root of 15 on top. And then you subtract 1, so you've got x equals negative 1 plus minus square root of 15 over 2. That's how you'll do it if it wants it in simplified radical form. If for some reason it doesn't, well, you'll just need to type all that into your calculator separately, with the one time doing it with a plus, the other time doing it with a minus. With addition, you're going to end up with approximately 0.94. And with subtraction, you will end up with negative 2.94. And there you go. That is completing the square. There's other stuff on this page. I'll reserve those for if you need help with that during our Schoology conferences today. But if there's no other major question, I will call that it. All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you guys later.